Once upon a time in the bustling city of Awokpula, lived a couple named Ebiub and his wife, Nkiru. They had been married for 6 years, and in the beginning, their love was loud and bright. Ebiub was a tall man with a deep voice and a proud walk. Nkiru, on the other hand, was a cheerful woman with a soft round face and a big belly that bounced when she laughed. She loved to cook and eat, and her body wore the evidence of all her favorite meals: spicy nkobi, large bowls of pounded yam, and sweet chin-chin. Ebiub used to love her that way. He would tell her that she was warm and cuddly like a pillow and that lying next to her made him feel safe. He used to boast to his friends that his wife's food and body were the best in Awokpula. But something started to change. Slowly. One day, after church, Ebiub looked at Nkiru as she waddled up the stairs to their flat and sighed deeply, shaking his head in disgust. That night, instead of praising her well-made egusi soup, he pushed his plate aside and told her bluntly, "You're too fat, Nkiru. You need to do something about it." Nkiru blinked in confusion. For a moment she thought he was joking. But his face was stiff and serious. "Fat? But you love me like this," she said, half laughing, half scared. Ebiub didn't smile. He told her she was now embarrassing to take out, that people stared, and that he was tired of pretending. From that day, everything changed. Ebiub turned into a very different man. "I love slim women," he would shout at Nkiru. "You are too fat. If you don't lose all this useless extra skin, pack your load and go back to your father's house," Ebiub would shout angrily at Nkiru. He would abuse her verbally with the most hurtful and insulting words till Nkiru would run into the toilet to hide and cry. Ebiub stopped eating her food. He began locking the fridge at night and replacing all the things she loved, her sweet puff-puff and cold zobo, with bitter green teas and boiled eggs. He bought her a dusty treadmill from someone's garage and placed it right in the middle of the living room, where the TV used to be. "You'll thank me later," he said, as Nkiru sat on the floor crying with her arms folded over her stomach. Her once sweet home began hell. He stopped taking her out or even talked to her. She didn't know how to argue. All she knew was that her husband no longer saw her the same. And so, for love, or maybe fear, she obeyed. She began waking up early to walk around the compound. She would jog until her thighs hurt and her chest pounded like a talking drum. Her neighbors watched her in utter shock, wondering what was going on. Nkiru joined a popular gym and worked out like her life depended on it. For months, she starved herself and everything just to lose weight, and slowly she did. One chilly Harmattan morning, Nkiru stood in front of the mirror, staring at the reflection that no longer looked familiar. Her double chin was gone. Her arms no longer jiggled when she waved. Her waist had shrunk so much that her old wrappers kept falling off. But as she touched her cheekbones, she didn't smile. Instead, she whispered to herself, "Where did I go?" She had lost the weight, but she had also lost parts of herself along the way. The parts that used to light up when she saw roasted corn on the roadside. The parts that used to giggle while licking ice cream. The parts that danced without music. All of it, silenced. Ebiub didn't care. To him, this was victory. He now paraded her in front of people, dragging her to events and telling everyone, "See my wife now. Slim like mosquito." He laughed as if he had achieved something great. But deep down, something bothered him. Nkiru didn't glow for him anymore. She didn't bend to his commands the way she used to. Her silence was different now. It was powerful. Meanwhile, Connor, the gym instructor, watched her with growing admiration. He noticed how people at the gym now turned to her for advice. "Auntie Nkiru, which one is better, banana before workout or after? Auntie Nkiru, how many squats did you do to trim your waist?" She would answer shyly at first, then slowly she began to answer confidently. Her voice was no longer small. It filled the room. One evening after a workout, Connor handed her a bottle of water. "You know," he said, "when you first came here, you look tired. Not just your body, but your eyes. Now, you look free. Nkiru looked at him. Her lips trembled, but no words came out. She simply nodded and walked away, her heart pounding like battered drums. At home, Ebiub was fuming. He had seen a photo on someone's WhatsApp status, a picture of Nkiru at the gym, posing with Connor and some other members after a group workout. She was smiling wide, her hands raised in a triumphant V. For some reason, the image haunted him. That smile, it wasn't his anymore. She wasn't his anymore. That night, he waited for her by the door. The moment she stepped in, he exploded. So now you're posing in pictures like a celebrity, ABI. Is it that, boy? Is that why you're always at the gym? His voice cracked with jealousy, but Nkiru didn't flinch. Instead, she placed her gym bag by the door, walked to the kitchen, and poured herself a cup of warm lemon water, her new routine. She didn't answer him. And that silence hit harder than any insult. The next few days were filled with tension. Ebiub would slam doors, throw insults, and try to provoke her. But Nkiru had grown a shield around her heart. She was tired of fighting. Tired of trying. She just wanted peace. Then, something unexpected happened. During her routine checkup at the clinic, the nurse looked at her test results, then looked up, blinking. "Madam Nkiru, have you been feeling different lately? Like tired, maybe a bit dizzy?" Nkiru nodded. She had assumed it was just from the workouts. The nurse smiled and handed her a small white paper. "Congratulations, Ma. You're pregnant." Nkiru's world froze. She blinked at the words and read them again and again. For years, she had tried. For years, she had prayed. But nothing had happened. And now, when she had stopped expecting, it came. Tears filled her eyes, not just tears of joy, but of disbelief. She had been told she might never conceive. She had been told her body was the problem. But now, her body had spoken for itself. As she left the clinic, her steps were light, her hands cradling her flat stomach gently, as if already protecting what was growing inside. Her heart beat fast, not with fear, but with something that had long been lost, hope. But as she reached home, reality returned. How would Ebiub react? Would he even care? Would he think the child was his? Or would he accuse her of something worse? She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall, her mind racing. She had wanted this for so long. But now that it was here, she wasn't sure how to share it. Especially with a man who had turned her joy into sorrow for so long. That night, Nkiru couldn't sleep. She lay on her side, eyes wide open, one hand resting gently on her stomach. The ceiling fan above her spun in lazy circles, creaking every few seconds like an old secret trying to escape. Ebiub snored loudly beside her, mouth slightly open, as if nothing in the world bothered him. She thought about the timing. She hadn't been with Ebiub much. After he told her he didn't want anything from her again till she lost weight totally, he had practically stopped touching her. It had been months. The next morning, Nkiru got dressed and went to the gym. She didn't tell Ebiub anything. She needed to breathe. Needed to think. She needed space. When she got to the gym, Connor noticed something different about her immediately. Her smile was softer. Her eyes were distant. She went through her workout slower than usual, moving like someone deep in thought. After the session, Connor walked up to her and gently asked, "Are you okay?" Nkiru hesitated, then nodded. But Connor wasn't convinced. He knew her well enough to read between the lines. "If there's anything you want to talk about," he started, but Nkiru shook her head, tears already forming in her eyes. She didn't speak. She just walked into the locker room, locked herself inside a toilet stall, and cried. Back at home, Ebiub was in the living room, flipping through channels like a man looking for purpose in the TV. When Kiru returned, he barely looked at her. "You spent a long time at the gym today," he muttered. She said nothing. The silence between them was now a familiar guest. It lived in the walls, in the kitchen, and even in the bed they barely shared. But this silence, this one was different. It was the kind that held something inside. Something about to explode. Later that evening, Nkiru sat at the dining table, her hands trembling. She had made a decision. She couldn't keep it hidden forever. She had to tell him. Whether he deserved to know or not, Ebiub was still her husband. At least on paper. She waited until he finished his meal. He was scraping the plate when she spoke. "I'm pregnant." The spoon stopped. For a few seconds, the only sound was the ticking of the wall clock and the distant barking of a dog from a neighbor's compound. Ebiub looked up, his eyes narrowing. "What did you say?" "I said I'm pregnant." He stood up slowly, walked around the table, and looked at her, hard. As if his eyes were trying to pull the truth out of her face. "How?" he asked, his voice sharp and cold. "How can you be pregnant when we've not touched in months?" Nkiru's heart dropped. She had expected this, but hearing it out loud still hurt like a slap. "You think I'm stupid," he barked. "You go to the gym every day, come back glowing, and now you're suddenly carrying a baby. Whose is it?" "That boy's. That idiot that keeps smiling at you like he owns you." Nkiru tried to speak, but her voice cracked. "It's yours, Ebiub." "Liar," he shouted, knocking the cup off the table. It hit the ground and shattered like her heart. "You think I'm a fool? This is what you've been planning all along, Abi. Cheat on me and then come here to pin a baby on me." Nkiru stood up, tears flooding her eyes. "I've never been touched another man. You left me, Ebiub. You stopped caring. You stopped everything. But this child is a miracle." Ebiub's eyes darkened. "You want to insult me in my own house? You fat pig, I made you lose weight and now you think you're better than me." The words stung. More than all the exercises. More than the boiled eggs. More than the insults. Nkiru felt like a balloon being slowly pierced from all sides. She picked up her bag and walked to the door. "Where do you think you're going?" Ebiub shouted behind her. Nkiru didn't answer. She stepped outside, closed the door gently behind her, and kept walking. Her tears fell freely now, but her steps were firm. She didn't know where she was going yet, but she knew she couldn't stay. Back inside, Ebiub was pacing like a madman. He called his mother immediately. "Mama," she said, "she's pregnant," he raged, "but we haven't even," his mother interrupted. "Pregnant? Are you sure it's yours?" "I don't think so," he replied. "Then you better act fast," Mama said. "Before she drags shame into this family. Go and find out who she's sleeping with." Ebiub's heart beat faster. Rage, fear, shame, they all mixed inside him like bitter leaf soup. Nkiru walked through the quiet streets of Awakpola with no clear direction, just the heavy weight of everything she had carried for years pressing down on her chest. The sky was dark, the wind dry and rough against her skin, but she didn't stop. Each step away from Ebiub's house felt like peeling off another layer of pain, insult, and silence. She thought about going to her aunt's house, but she remembered how her aunt once said, "Marriage is not like sugarcane that you chew and spit when it's no longer sweet." She would likely tell Nkiru to go back and make it work. Nkiru couldn't bear to hear that now. So, she kept walking. After what felt like hours, her legs led her to a small guest house at the edge of town. It was the kind of place people used when they didn't want to be found. She paid for a night with the little cash she had on her and sank onto the bed, her body aching and mind spinning. In the silence of that tiny room, her hand returned to her belly. For the first time, she whispered, "You're real." and I will protect you. Even if it's just me. Meanwhile, back in the house, Ebiub was tossing and turning in anger. His mother had sent voice notes upon voice notes filled with venom. She's a disgrace. You should go to her gym and ask them who's responsible. Drag her out if you must. Women like that only understand shame. But as the messages played on, Ebiub felt something strange creeping in, doubt. A small, quiet voice asking, what if she's telling the truth? Still, he pushed it aside. His pride was louder. The next morning, Nkiru woke up to a dozen missed calls. Most were from Ebiub. The others were from her cousin Adeabi, who lived across town. Word had spread quickly, as it always did with Ebiub. He had called family members to rant about his wife pinning another man's child on him. Adeabi's message was short but firm, wherever you are, come here. You're safe. Nkiru packed her small bag and left the guest house. When she arrived at Adeabi's house, the tall, fair-skinned woman welcomed her with a tight hug and tears in her eyes. Adeabi had always been the outspoken one in the family. She never liked Ebiub. From the wedding day, she had whispered in Nkiru's ear, this man go show you shij if you're not careful. Nkiru had laughed then. But now the words haunted her like a warning ignored. That afternoon, Nkiru told Adeabi everything. The fake compliments. The weight pressure. The verbal abuse. The accusations. The gym. The baby. Everything. Adeabi didn't interrupt. She sat quietly, eyes locked on her cousin, her jaw tightening with anger. When Nkiru finished, Adeabi stood up, went to the kitchen, brought her a bowl of okra soup and warm fufu, placed it in front of her and said, you will eat, you will rest, and tomorrow, we go for scan. Let's know how far along you are. This is your time to heal. For the first time in a long time, Nkiru smiled. Not because she was fine, but because someone saw her. Someone loved her. That night, Ebiub stood outside the gym, hiding in the shadows like a jealous ghost. He watched people come and go, hoping to catch Connor. He was ready for a fight. Ready to drag answers out of someone. But Connor was not there. Instead, one of the cleaners, an old man named Boba Ayamide, walked out and saw Ebiub's angry face. Looking for someone? Boba asked. Ebiub cleared his throat. The boy that works here. The one always around my wife. Boba scratched his beard. You mean Connor? That good man, he treats everyone with respect. Even helps my old bones stretch sometimes. Ebiub narrowed his eyes. Has he been too friendly with my wife? Boba stared at him and smiled a knowing smile. Your wife? Ebiub described Nkiru and the old man nodded his head knowingly like a lizard. That woman came here broken. The old man said, she could barely breathe without crying. That man. He gave her space to heal. Not love. Not touch. Just kindness. Something I doubt she got from home. Ebiub's throat went dry. He turned away and walked back to his car, suddenly unsure of everything. Back at Adeabi's house, the next morning, Nkiru sat in the clinic, her hand trembling in Adeabi's. The nurse smiled warmly. You're about 12 weeks along, she said after the scan. Everything looks fine. Nkiru smiled too. But her heart was still heavy. As they stepped out into the sun, Adeabi turned to her. This baby is clearly Ebiub's child. What do you want to do now? Nkiru looked up at the sky and whispered, I want to start over. But starting over would not be easy. Days later, a letter arrived in a brown envelope, sealed with no return address. It was dropped quietly into the mailbox of Adeabi's compound one hot Thursday afternoon while Nkiru was inside folding baby clothes Adeabi had bought her. At first, she thought it was just one of those annoying electricity bills, until Adeabi picked it up and saw her name handwritten across the front. Nkiru, someone dropped this for you, Adeobi said, raising an eyebrow. Nkiru turned, wiping her hands on a wrapper. Me? Who knows I'm here? She took the envelope slowly, her fingers trembling as she peeled it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper, written in neat cursive. It was from a lawyer. The letter read, Dear Mrs. Nkiru Ebiub, this letter serves as a formal notice that your husband, Mr. Ebiub Uwokwe, has filed a petition at the customary court of Awokpola, citing marital abandonment and emotional betrayal as grounds for dissolution of marriage. You are hereby summoned to appear before the court on the 22nd of next month to defend your position. Failure to appear may result in judgment passed in your absence. Nkiru's hands shook. Her legs almost gave way. Adeobi rushed to her side, catching her just before she fell into the nearest chair. He wants to divorce me, she whispered, her voice cracking. After everything. Adeobi grabbed the letter, read it with sharp eyes, and hissed loudly. Abandonment. This man must be mad. You left because he nearly crushed your soul, and now he wants to play the victim. Nkiru sat still, silent, stunned. But slowly, a wave of something different crept into her chest, not fear, not sadness. But anger. Real anger. The kind that had been building like steam under a pot, just waiting for the cover to blow. She stood up slowly. Fine. He wants a fight. I'll give him one. But he won't like how it ends. The next few weeks were a whirlwind. Adeobi helped her find a lawyer, a kind, sharp-tongued woman named Barrister Fioro, who had made it her life's mission to protect women like Nkiru. Together, they prepared everything, medical reports, police records, gym testimonies, even printed out messages that showed how badly Ebiub had treated her. Meanwhile, Ebiub was busy boasting to his friends. He sat at his usual pepper soup joint, bragging about how he was finally setting himself free. She thinks she can leave me and come back with a swollen belly claiming it's mine. Tufia. I'll shame her in court. But deep down, Ebiub was scared. Very scared. The gossip in Awokpola was no longer one-sided. Word had started spreading about how Nkiru was glowing now, how she looked stronger, finer, and surprisingly, happier. People talked. That's what people in town did best. And slowly, Ebiub began to feel the shift. Strangers in the market gave him side eyes. It was beginning to hurt where he didn't expect it. The morning of the court hearing came faster than anyone imagined. The courtroom was small and packed. Neighbors came. Gym members showed up. Even Baba Ahmad from the gym came, dressed in his one good kaftan. Ebiub arrived first, wearing his best senator suit and a fake frown that tried to look like injured dignity. His mother came with him, wearing red lace and puffing with pride. Finish her today, she hissed. Make sure she regrets ever leaving. Then Nkiru walked in and the room went quiet. She was heavily pregnant. She wore a simple green gown, no makeup. Just a small gold earring and a soft scarf tied neatly on her head. But it wasn't her outfit that caught everyone's attention, it was her aura. She looked calm, confident and glowed like sunrise after storm. When the judge entered, everyone rose and the case began. Ebiub's lawyer spoke first, painting a picture of a woman who had abandoned her duties, who ran off with a stranger's child, and who damaged her husband's reputation. Ebiub sat there, nodding, acting like a wounded angel. Then it was Nkiru's turn. Barrister Fioro stood up, her eyes sharp like pepper. She took her time. She told the story from the beginning. About the weight shaming, the insults, the fridge lock, the exercise orders, the abuse. She read out text messages, showed photos, presented medical reports, even called on Baba Ahmad and Connor to testify. By the time she was done, the courtroom was silent. Even the judge removed his glasses and rubbed his eyes. Ebiub sat frozen. His mother sat still, lips pressed tight like unripe orange. Then the judge leaned forward and asked one simple question. Mr. Ebiub, if this child is not yours, as you claim, why did you never ask for a DNA test? Ebiub opened his mouth, but nothing came out. He hadn't thought of that. He had been so busy shouting and feeling like the victim that he forgot the truth had legs. Suddenly, all his pride, his suit, his noise, they looked small. The judge paused, then looked at Nkiru. Madam, do you still wish to be married to this man? Nkiru smiled slightly. No, my lord. I just want peace. For me, and my child. The courtroom erupted in whispers. Ebiub lowered his head. The judgment was postponed, but everyone already knew where it was going. The lie had crumbled. The truth had stood. And Nkiru had won. When she stepped outside the courtroom, she found someone waiting for her in the sun. Connor. He was leaning on a tree, holding a small brown teddy bear in one hand and a soft smile on his face. I figured your baby might like a friend, he said. And for the first time in a long, long while. Nkiru laughed. Ebiub didn't return home the same way he left that courtroom. The man who once backed others, wore arrogance like perfume, and walked like the ground belonged to him, now dragged his feet like a beaten dog. His mother followed behind him, hissing like hot oil. She didn't even wait for the kiki to stop properly before she jumped down in front of their gate. This is what I warned you about, she shouted. You see now? A woman has disgraced you in public. Ebiub said nothing. His head remained low. Inside the house, silence greeted them. The house was spotless, yet it felt empty. Not just because Nkiru was gone, but because something had died there. Respect. Warmth. Love. Ebiub collapsed into the sofa, arms dangling, eyes staring into space. She doesn't even want the marriage, he muttered. She doesn't even want me. His mother scoffed and folded her arms. Of course she doesn't. Why would she want a man who allowed her grow wings? You spoiled her. You were too soft on that damn woman. Ebiub slowly turned to face her, his voice suddenly steady. Mama, please. Go home. The old woman flinched. What did you say? I said, go home. It was the first time he had ever told her those words. Her mouth opened, then it closed slowly in shame. She grabbed her handbag in slow motion, stomped toward the door, and muttered, you will regret this. But Ebiub didn't reply. He just sat there, broken. Meanwhile, across town, Nkiru was moving forward. Adeobi had helped her secure a small self-contained apartment near Nkiru's new tailoring workshop which she had recently rented. The landlord, a kind elderly woman named Madame Bosid, loved her instantly and gave her a discount after hearing her story. I like women that rise after falling, she said. You will do well here. The apartment was small but full of light. A flower pot sat on the windowsill. A standing mirror leaned against the wall. And in the corner, a small baby crib that Adeobi had bought for her waited patiently at the corner of the room. Nkiru started her life slowly. She woke up early every morning, boil yam and tea, sit by the window, and let the wind kiss her face. Her baby bump was now clearly visible. She rubbed it often, smiling at the little kicks that came like secret messages. Connor visited often. He never rushed her. Never forced closeness. He simply showed up, with fruits, fresh bread, a smile, and sometimes silence. The good kind. The kind that allowed healing. One day, he brought a sewing machine. For your shop, he said shyly. A small gift. Nkiru stared at it. Then at him. No man had ever bought her anything just because he believed in her. She didn't say much. Just nodded, her eyes misty with tears. Happiness had tiptoed gently into her life again. Meanwhile, Ebiub had started drinking. At first, it was a bottle after work. Then two. then entire crates. He would sit alone, watching his old wedding videos on his phone, rewatching clips of Nkiru dancing, laughing, glowing in the dress she had sewn herself. Now he saw what he hadn't seen then, the joy. The undiluted happiness, but now it was gone. Neighbors began to complain. He shouts at night. He cries loudly. He talks to himself. One even said he saw Ibube sitting on the floor outside, hugging Nkiru's old wrapper like a baby. The once proud man had become a shadow. One rainy evening, Ibube found himself walking to the gym. It was empty, lights dimmed, rain tapping the windows gently. He stood there, staring at the treadmill, the one he had forced Nkiru to run on like rabbit. He sat on it and cried. Back at her apartment, Nkiru was flipping through names in a baby book. She didn't know yet if it was a boy or girl. But she knew one thing, this child would carry a name that meant strength. The next morning, a knock came at her door. Curiosity mingled with caution as she approached the door. Opening it, she was met with the unexpected sight of Ibube, drenched from the rain, his once proud posture now slouched, as bloodshot and weary. He looked nothing like the man she had married. The arrogance had drained away, leaving behind a shell of remorse. Nkiru, he began, his voice barely above a whisper. I came to apologize. She stepped aside, allowing him entry. He moved hesitantly, settling on the edge of the couch, his hands clasped tightly. I was wrong, he continued, his eyes fixed on the floor. About everything. The way I treated you, the things I said. I was a fool. Nkiru remained silent, her gaze steady, offering no solace but also no condemnation. I don't expect forgiveness, he said, rising slowly. I just needed to tell you that I'm sorry. Truly. As he turned to leave, she spoke, her voice soft yet firm. Ibube. He paused, looking back at her. I forgive you, and hope you find peace, she said. He nodded, a single tear escaping down his cheek, then he stepped back into the rain, disappearing into the misty afternoon. Weeks turned into months. Nkiru's tailoring business flourished, her designs gaining recognition across Awakpula. She and Connor grew closer, their bond strengthening with each passing day. On a bright morning, Nkiru gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She named her Ifunanya, meaning love in Igbo. As she cradled her daughter, surrounded by friends and family, Nkiru felt a profound sense of fulfillment. She had faced adversity, endured pain, but emerged stronger, embracing a future filled with hope and love. 1 year later, Nkiru agreed to marry Connor, and they lived in love and harmony.